There was one question that could have solved the Black Dahlia case instantly, a detail so specific that detectives believed only the killer could answer it. Over 50 people confessed to murdering Elizabeth Short. Not one got it right. Every confession crumbled when faced with this single question. This is the story of the question that exposed every liar, and the silence that followed when the real killer chose to say nothing. At the end of Part 1, investigators were left with silence. No arrests, no convictions. But behind closed doors, detectives believed the killer had revealed himself through knowledge only one person could possess. Today, we explore what happened when that knowledge was tested, and why even the most convincing suspects failed. This is about the detail that separated truth from lies, and why it was never answered. Before we continue, if you appreciate deeply researched true crime content, told with respect, hit subscribe and turn on notifications. This case has been sensationalized for decades, but what you're hearing is built from police records and historical documentation. We owe Elizabeth Short the truth, not just another retelling of myths. So let's continue with what really happened behind the investigation nobody talks about. In homicide investigations, certain facts are deliberately hidden from the public. These details act as truth traps that separate real knowledge from speculation. Anyone can repeat what newspapers publish, but only the killer can describe what was never revealed. Small, specific moments that exist only in the mind of someone who was actually there. This is standard procedure in major crime investigations, and it would become the foundation of the Black Dahlia case. After Elizabeth Short's murder became front-page news, confessions flooded police stations across California. Some came from fame seekers, others from troubled individuals convinced they'd committed the crime during blackouts. Every confession sounded convincing at first. Every confessor seemed certain, until detectives asked the question. Then, everything fell apart. Certainty became hesitation, details became vague, and police knew immediately they were dealing with another false confession. Detectives asked each confessor the same question, a detail so precise it couldn't be guessed. Not one suspect answered correctly. Not even those who knew Elizabeth personally, who studied the case obsessively, or who had been near the crime scene. The question became an invisible wall that no false confession could climb. No matter how detailed the story seemed, this single question revealed the truth every time. It wasn't a headline detail like where her body was found. It wasn't visible in crime scene photos, and it wasn't something deduced from forensic reports. Investigators described it as a moment, something observed directly, not assumed. A fact that required presence, not research. Something that existed in experience, not imagination. This distinction is crucial because it meant the question couldn't be answered through study or logic alone. Several suspects came dangerously close to arrest. Their timelines aligned perfectly. Their stories matched witness descriptions. Some even had personal connections to Elizabeth Short. But when asked the withheld question, uncertainty appeared in their eyes. Hesitation crept into their voices. Police couldn't ignore that moment of doubt, that fracture in certainty. And without the correct answer, the case couldn't move forward. Suspicion repeatedly returned to Dr. George Hodel. Wealthy, intelligent, socially protected, he fit psychological profiles investigators studied. He had medical knowledge. He had a history of disturbing behavior. He had opportunity. But suspicion couldn't cross the threshold of proof. Mountains of circumstantial evidence meant nothing without someone demonstrating knowledge that could only come from being present at the crime. The question remained the barrier between suspicion and conviction. Police secretly monitored Hodel for years. His home was bugged. Conversations recorded on primitive wire devices. Movements tracked. Detectives believed they were close to breaking him. Yet nothing in those recordings tied him to the one detail they guarded most closely: Hours of surveillance, thousands of recorded words, but never the answer they needed. The question remained unanswered, and Hodel remained free. Decades later, Hodel's son Steve, himself a homicide detective, publicly accused his father. He presented evidence, connected timelines, argued his father was a serial killer. The accusation became a bestseller and reignited the case worldwide. New attention focused on Elizabeth Short's story, but even with exhaustive investigation, it still failed to unlock the withheld detail police needed. The question remained unanswered, regardless of compelling circumstantial evidence. While the public debated theories and documentaries presented compelling suspects, police remained bound to their standards. They had procedures, they had requirements for evidence. Without the correct answer to that question, without someone demonstrating knowledge only the killer possessed, the case couldn't close. No matter how much circumstantial evidence accumulated, without that fundamental proof, justice remained impossible. Standards exist for a reason. Other suspects surfaced over the years. Acquaintances from Elizabeth's time in Los Angeles, medical professionals with surgical skill, strangers whose psychological profiles matched the crime's brutality. Each theory generated excitement. Each seemed promising initially, but each eventually failed under scrutiny when faced with the fundamental test. The withheld question stood like a gate that no theory could pass through without the key. Some investigators believed the crime involved more than one person. That would explain the logistics of moving the body and the complexity of what was done. A shared secret, coordinated silence, two people who agreed never to speak. But again, no evidence reached the level required. The withheld question remained unanswered, whether one person or several knew the truth. Numbers didn't matter. Knowledge did. Sensational reporting complicated everything. Newspapers competed by inventing details and publishing speculation as truth. False information entered public consciousness permanently. Memories became contaminated, testimonies unreliable. Witnesses confused what they saw with what they read. The media's hunger for content created noise that drowned out signal. This wasn't just annoying. It actively damaged the investigation's ability to separate truth from fiction. As years passed, witnesses aged and died. Evidence deteriorated in storage. Photographs yellowed. The question still existed in police files, carefully guarded. But the chance to hear it answered correctly faded with each passing year. Time doesn't solve cases. It buries them under layers of impossibility. What was solvable in 1947 became increasingly impossible with each decade that passed. In 1947, forensic science was primitive by today's standards. No DNA testing, no digital databases, no computerized fingerprint matching. Blood typing was basic. Trace evidence analysis barely existed. Tools that might solve this case in days today simply weren't available then. By the time modern forensic methods arrived decades later, most physical evidence had degraded beyond usefulness or been lost entirely. Technology advanced too late. Evidence that might have mattered was mishandled or lost over decades. Not through negligence, but through time's passage. Storage protocols changed, evidence rooms reorganized, materials transferred, and things disappeared. Photographs that might contain crucial details, documents preserving witness statements, physical evidence that could be retested with modern technology. Each loss closed another door to potential answers. The Black Dahlia investigation slowly shifted from active pursuit to cold case to historical mystery. New detectives inherited the file, read volumes of reports, interviewed remaining witnesses, and eventually closed it again. The case became something studied in criminology courses and analyzed in documentaries, but no longer actively investigated. It became frozen, preserved, unchanging. murder transformed into an academic subject. Elizabeth Short became a symbol, the Black Dahlia, a name evoking mystery and noir Los Angeles. She became folklore. But symbols don't need justice. They don't need closure. People do. Her story became less about a young woman whose life was stolen and more about a puzzle to solve. That transformation, however unintentional, dishonors her memory and forgets the person behind the legend. Someone knew exactly what happened to Elizabeth Short. Someone knew where she was killed, how she died, and the answer to the question police never revealed. That person carried that knowledge in silence, either taking it to the grave or living with it still. That's not speculation. That's certainty. Murder doesn't happen without a murderer. The question is only whether they were ever identified. Unsolved cases aren't just mysteries to debate. They're unfinished responsibilities, promises broken to victims and families. Every unsolved homicide represents a failure to provide what the system promises: accountability and justice. Elizabeth Short deserved better than becoming a legend. She deserved an investigation that ended with answers, not questions echoing through decades unanswered. That's why this still matters. Modern criminologists and forensic psychologists still analyze the case using contemporary understanding of violent crime. They apply new frameworks to old evidence. They re-interview descendants of witnesses. They search archives for overlooked documents. But without that missing answer, without someone providing knowledge only the killer possessed, certainty remains impossible. Analysis can suggest possibilities. It cannot prove truth. The distinction matters. The withheld question still exists in police records, filed away in boxes few people access. The question is unchanged from 1947. The answer it seeks is unchanged. But the people who might have answered it are mostly gone now. Victims of time, if not justice. That question sits in darkness, waiting for an answer that may never come. A truth that may remain silent forever. If the killer never spoke, never confessed, never revealed what they knew to anyone, then the truth may have died with them. It may have ended quietly in a hospital room somewhere in Los Angeles. No dramatic confession, no deathbed revelation, just silence extending into permanent silence. And the question remains, preserved in files, unanswered and forever unanswerable. Every false confessor stumbled at the same point. Every fabricated story fractured when tested. Some got angry when they couldn't answer. Some became confused, realizing their false memories didn't include what detectives needed. Some simply went silent, unable to invent what they didn't know. But the question never failed. It stood firm, unchanged, an immovable standard that no lie could overcome. Truth cannot be faked. The Black Dahlia case remains unsolved, not from lack of effort or incompetent investigation. It remains unsolved because of an absence of truth. Investigators worked thousands of hours. They interviewed hundreds of people. They followed every lead available. But without someone providing the one piece of knowledge that could only come from presence at the crime, the case couldn't close. Truth cannot be invented. Elizabeth Short was not a myth or symbol. She was not the Black Dahlia. She was a 22-year-old woman with dreams of becoming an actress. She had a difficult past and hopes for a better future. She was someone's daughter. She was a real person whose life ended violently and without justice. That is what matters. Not the mystery, the person. History remembers mysteries because they're interesting. They invite speculation and debate. They generate content. But silence is history's loudest answer. The silence of unsolved cases tells us something about the limits of justice, about how evil sometimes escapes accountability. Not because it's smarter, but because the mechanisms we've built to find truth sometimes reach the edge of what they can accomplish. One question could have ended everything. One answer could have brought justice to Elizabeth Short, and no one ever answered it correctly. If stories like this matter to you, if you believe remembering victims is important, subscribe and share your thoughts below. Because remembering Elizabeth Short as a person, rather than a mystery, is the closest thing to justice history can offer now.